It's been quite the run for these fight-crazy pocket creatures. For starters, your boy Ash Peter Pan Ketchum finally won the Pokemon League after all these years. Took him long enough, but hey, maybe now he's broken the curse and can grow up like a normal child. We're also mere days away from Pokémon Sword and Shield, the first new generation of mainline games built for a home console, and we're beyond excited! Venturing out into a fully 3D world, hunting through actual fields and patches of grass, discovering brand new beasts to join our travelling menagerie of 5 identical Scythers is something we've dreamed of since those first sprightly steps in Pallet Town all those years ago. And yet, despite the abundance of 10-year-olds wandering the wilderness, this world is much more dangerous than it looks. If you want to be the very best, like no one ever was, you'll need more street smarts than the unnamed trainer who gives away all his best Pokemon as soon as they get good, you idiot! You'll need knowledge, street smarts, and maybe a refresher course on that Missingno item dupe glitch. But failing that, here are a few facts to catch instead. Shall we look at some? I'm Ben from TripleJump, and here are 10 things you didn't know about Pokemon video games. Number 10. The origins of capsule monsters. Let's start at the beginning, shall we? Most of us already know that the creator of the legendary pocket monsters, Satoshi Tajiri, was inspired by his childhood hobby of collecting bugs. There's even a nod to this in Pokemon Crystal, where you can fight a bug catcher called Tajiri. In 1981, Satoshi set up a video game fanzine called Game Freak, where he brought on a contributor by the name of Ken Sugimori, the artist who only went on to design all the lovely little critters we'd be catching years later. As Game Freak went from magazine to actual development studio in 1989, they produced a game for the Famicom called Mendel Palace, but the penny dropped for Satoshi when he saw the Game Boy Link cable. Development on Pokemon started in 1990, but went through a turbulent few years, struggling to scrape together funding for what was initially called capsule monsters, mimicking the Japanese gachapon machines. Incredibly, the game was initially turned down by Nintendo several times before a certain Shigeru Miyamoto saw the pitch and thankfully changed their minds. If anyone can spot the making of a wildly successful franchise, it's this guy. Number 9. Professor Oak was the final boss. Professor Oak, friendly mentor, number 1 source of starter Pokemon, number 7 on the RSPCA's most wanted list, and apparently the ultimate final challenge for aspiring Pokemon masters. At least, he was meant to be, before it was cut from the final game. And it's a shame, really. While he struggles to remember his own grandson's name, yes, Professor, he's definitely called Arseface. The man is a leading authority on all things Pokemon, so what better way to round off a heroic journey than to beat the sensei who started you on your epic adventure? Pokemon Red and Blue are chock full of glitches, so it's no surprise this battle is still buried in the code somewhere, and using GameShark hacks, you can experience it too. His elite team would include whichever starter was left behind by you and your rival, Arseface, along with a Tauros, an Executor, an Arcanine, and a Gyarados. Quite similar to your rival's final lineup actually, albeit at even higher levels, those being between 66 and 70, making for a fierce finale. Number 8. Twitch Plays Pokemon is canon? Western translations of Japanese titles can be fairly wacky as it is. French translations, however, are on another level entirely. In the French version of Pokemon Crystal, the wise trio guarding the Tin Tower are called Ken, Shu, and Raoul, referencing several characters from anime series Fist of the North Star. So far, so Easter egg-y. But the real silliness comes with Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, where gym leader Brawly reveals his obsession with a certain spiral deity created by Twitch. Before battle, he says, "I discovered the secret of true power by staring at a helix fossil for days and days." This, of course, alludes to the classic Mimi from 2014 event Twitch Plays Pokemon, where an entire playthrough was controlled through commands entered in Twitch chat. Predictably, it was chaos, but amongst all this chaos emerged the Helix Fossil, the one true Oracle and Lord of Fate. You see, Trollia viewers kept trying to use the Helix Fossil in the items menu, which became a running joke, and eventually has been included in a game itself. But does this mean Lord Helix is now canon? We hope so. Number 7. Weird Pokédex entries. Like the internet, we feel that everything we see in the Pokédex should be taken with a pinch of salt, because some of these are just really, really disturbing. For a start, Hypno appears to be a child snatcher. According to Fire Red, it once took away a child it hypnotized, but given Drowsy's habit of eating children's dreams, it clearly runs in the evolutionary line. And Drifloon's entry says it likes to trick kids into thinking it's a balloon before carrying them away. Seriously, all these pokey kidnappers creeping around a world full of wandering kids? Where's Professor Yewtree when you need him? On a lighter note, poor Farfetch'd was almost hunted into extinction by humans. We're fairly sure internet darling Surfetch'd is actually on a quest for revenge against humanity, so, look out for him. There are too many bizarre Pokédex entries to cover here, but we will say this: Magcargo's body is apparently 18,000 degrees Fahrenheit, almost twice as hot as the surface of the sun. He is literally fire, or lit, or whatever the kids are saying these days when they're not being kidnapped by balloons and hypnotic Pokemon. Number 6. China exists in the Pokemon universe. Speaking of bizarre Pokédex entries, this one's a real doozy. It's accepted that Pokemon regions are heavily inspired by real locations like Tokyo, Paris, and most recently, the Great British Isles. But they tend not to mention them by name. Not true! At least in Pokemon Stadium and Fire Red, where a throwaway Dex line about the zombie fungus bug Parasect explicitly mentions China. The bug host is controlled by the mushrooms that scatter poisonous spores. The spores are sometimes used as medicine in China. So does this mean our world and the land of Pokemon are linked? Is there a secret portal that Beijing is keeping hidden away? Are they protecting us from them? Or them from us? And if Pokemon do exist, just how tasty is fried Slowpoke tail? So many questions. Then again, Pokemon is filled with references to our world, Lieutenant Surge being the lightning American, Mew being found in the South American jungle of Guyana, etc, etc. Maybe we shouldn't trust the Pokédex on this one either. Number 5. Pokemon games on Sega consoles. Unbelievably, one of the most Nintendo franchises to have ever Nintendo'd has seen more than one appearance on their historic rival's hardware. The Sega Pico was an edutainment system for 3 to 7-year-olds first released in Japan in 1993. It did not take off over here, but remained popular in Japan for years, and given the monumental success of Pokemon, it was inevitable that these two titans would team up to dominate the edutainment market. A special Pikachu edition of the Sega Pico was released in 2003, bundled with everyone's favourite game, Pokemon Advanced Generation I've Begun Hiragana and Katakana. There was also a Pokemon Catch the Numbers in 2002, and everyone's favourite sequel, Pokemon Advanced Generation Pico for Everyone, Pokemon Loud Battle. The follow-up console in 2005, Advanced Pico Bino, yes, these names are confusing, also saw Pocket Monster's Best Wishes, Chinu Ikusi Pokemon Down Dukai, released in was that even close to correct? Anyway, it was released in 2010. And bonus fact, developers Game Freak also released a platformer for the Sega Mega Drive in 1994 called Pulseman. And while it predates Pokemon, the design did go on to inspire Gen 4 Mon Rotom. There you go. Number 4. The level 1 to 100 glitch. There's a good reason why you never saw a level 1 Pokemon in Gen 1 and 2. The reason is down to maths. Complicated and confusing maths, but here we go. So, in the original game engine, some level 1 Pokemon were calculated to have minus 54 experience points, and because the old engine used something called unsigned integers, basically meaning a number that can't do negative values, the game would interpret this value as 16,777,162 experience points, give or take. Making sense so far? So, if a level 1 Pokemon with this negative 54 experience fought a battle without reaching 0 or higher, it would tear a hole in space and time, and make the game think based on the obscenely high experience value that your Pokénoob was actually a level 245 powerhouse, which is then rounded down to level 100, commonly known as Experience Underflow. Great band name, by the way. So, yeah. This power leveling from 1 to 100 makes even the rare candy glitch look like a mugs game. Step it up. Number 3. Stranded after nightmare trade. It's the sort of thing you'd expect to hear on holidays from hell. You go to a nice, secluded island resort, get conned into trading your only ticket out of there, and are stuck forever in this tropical purgatory. But this is a real, albeit very rare possibility in Diamond and Pearl. If you head to the coastal Route 226 and surf along to the island, you can find the multilingual Meister living there. He offers to trade your Finneon for his Magikarp, which is both wildly unfair and potentially game-ruining. Let's say Finneon is your only Pokemon who knows Surf, and you trade it for the Magikarp that's unable to learn the HM Surf. Then you realize you don't have any other Pokemon that know or can learn Surf, Fly, or Teleport, and no rare candies to evolve Magikarp into Gyarados. Well, you could use a fishing rod to catch something that... you didn't pick up any rods. Well, good luck with the island life, because there are no tradesies backsies and you'll be stuck here with the creepy loner guy forever. See you later. Number 2. Ash's absent father could be Giovanni. Admittedly, this is more speculation than concrete fact, but hear us out. We're not told much about Ash's absent father. All we know for certain is that shortly after marrying Ash's mother, Delia Ketchum, he left to chase his dream of becoming a Pokemon master. Not the best parenting, although not quite as bad as the classic nipping out for some milk act. This hasn't stopped people from guessing who Ash's dad really is, though, ranging from the plausible Professor Oak to the absurd Mr. Mime. Are you joking? However, the most intriguing candidate for Who's That Father is Team Rocket boss and general bad dude Giovanni. The Pokemon Live stage musical, of all things, confirmed that Delia once dated the mob boss and was even involved in criminal activity before meeting Popper Ketchum and leaving it all behind. But you're lying, Delia! Admit it! It's a cover-up from you and that stupid Mr. Mime! Oh god, the black hair, the cheek markings, it's bloody Mr. Mime, isn't it? Oh, sweet Jesus Christ! Number 1. The Mystery of Missingno. Everyone knows about this legendary glitch from Gen 1, but with over 20 years of rumours, half-truths, and playground nonsense talk, it's well worth digging up the finer details on the infamous non-Pokemon. This digital monstrosity counts as a non-existent bird type, can be higher than level 100 and knows the move Water Gun twice. But why does it exist? Well, because maths. Again. Each specific Pokemon has a reference number, but the total number of variables must be a power of 2, 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, etc. Since 151 is a bigger number than 128, it's true, we checked, the game has to use 256 slots. Missingno is what shows up when it tries to reference a Pokemon from a slot that doesn't have one. While most wild areas have a pre-programmed set of Pokemon to spawn, the strip of coast on Cinnabar Island doesn't. So in theory, literally any Pokemon can spawn there, including missing numbers. Speaking to the Old Man in Viridian City temporarily changes your in-game name to Old Man 2, which then affects the calculation of what Pokemon to throw up in the wild encounter on Cinnabar Island, including missing numbers. Even weirder, your personal variation of Missingno is also affected by your proper in-game name. So instead of original Missingno, you could also get Missing Skin, Missing Body, Missing Skin 2, Missing Sprite, or Missing Subtlety. While we'll never know the true nature of Missingno, its origins as a rumored glitch that turned out to be 100% true make it just as legendary as any so-called real Pokemon. And there we are. But you know how the song goes. You teach me, and I'll teach you, and so on. So let us know if we've missed anything interesting in the comments below. You can follow myself and TripleJump on Twitter here, and while you're at it, why not support the things you enjoy by having a look at our Patreon. Finally, don't forget to like the video, share it with your friends, and subscribe to the channel. I'm Ben from TripleJump, and thanks for watching.